must be back to the courthouse, is that the case?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Municipal court.
You were just saying that was a historic use of this property, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it had been a couple decades or something where we didn't have a municipal court, but it just got started up again last year. Are we good, Jay?
Very good.
Cool. I apologize. I'm in digital form tonight, but I will call to order the June meeting of the South Kingstown Conservation Commission. We'll start with roll call. Mary Talbot Rabuano.
Here.
Vern Wyman.
Here?
Carol Craig.
Here.
Melissa Hughes.
Here.
Jay, could we make a note to switch out? Maggie Clune's still coming up.
Oh, it still is?
Kate's not.
Sorry.
We go by Maggie. Is there?
Kate Shorrock.
Here.
And Maggie Clune is no longer on the commission. And I'm Matt Bradywood, and I'm here. We'll move to an approval of minutes from, or are the minutes from last meeting available?
No, they weren't.
Not
they
yet.
weren't available for this meeting.
Excellent. So we'll move right on to old business, a continued discussion on the Commission's tree stewardship resources, town ordinance amendments, Tree City USA accreditation. Last meeting we spoke with Rich Bourbonnais, and this meeting we have a couple of guests as well. Beth Banner from Rhode Island DEM Urban Forestry, and Robert Allard as well from Urban and Community Forestry. So very, very excited to have both of you here. I've already, Lou, your expertise has already been demonstrated to me, and I really enjoyed a webinar that you gave in December, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
On urban forestry. So this will be great to fold you guys into the discussion. So it's been many months that we've sort of been playing with ideas about tree plantings and urban forestry and how the Concom could do something meaningful in South Kingstown with trees. We had a former member who was really excited about possibly doing some plantings on Main Street, and through that we sort of explored how complicated that could truly be. And so I think we've steered away from street trees a little bit, but yeah, just I'm happy to give you guys the floor, and anything you want to kick off with, feel free.
Sure. Yeah, so thanks so much for having us. So we've been wanting to reach out to towns that I think were close to reaching the Tree City USA status. So that there's 4 basic standards to be a Tree City USA. If you're not aware, it's to have a tree border department, to have a tree ordinance, and then to spend at least $2 per capita on your tree program, and then the 4th one is to celebrate Arbor Day. So that's a nice, easy one to celebrate and promote your tree program.
Sure.
So we looked through. We saw that you do have a tree you do have you do have a tree warden on staff. You also have a tree ordinance, and then we looked through your budget, just kind of the town's budget, and it looked like that those numbers were there for that too. So
Yeah.
so it was really like let's reach out and see if getting that final step of celebrating Arbor Day to kind of wrap that all up. And the reason we do this Tree City USA is really to kind of that sets the basic kind of foundation on the best way on how to best manage your communities for trees. So so that's sort of like the baseline first stop, and then from there we really want to like build your program up and do things like setting kind of large scale plan, long-term plan, and then do things like having a tree inventory or a tree canopy analysis, so you can really know what you're planning. So basically, being more proactive with your approach to your trees than reactive. So
Sure.
a lot of time, a lot of communities, as things happen, trees go down, you send the people out, and then that's basically a repeat. And then so with this, know what trees you have, kind of look at making your tree population more resilient, with more species, more age variety, things like that. So,
Sure.
So that's a long-winded answer. Beth,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so since the town already has the budget there, the ordinance, and this group and the tree warden, like Lou said, all that's left is celebrating Arbor Day. We do have a copy of these books from the Arbor Day Foundation, the Tree Board Handbook. Technically, this is a conservation commission, but when you're talking about tree things, it functions similarly to what a tree board is. So
We
it's a-
actually serve as the tree board.
Yeah.
for
yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah. So this goes through all of the activities that a tree board could do, and included in that, it includes some tips and ideas for Arbor Day celebrations. So we'll leave these here for you. And then, as for the actual application and becoming part of the program, it's pretty simple. The applications are due once a year in December. They're all online. It goes through every step, and basically you just have to provide a copy of your ordinance. You have to give us the numbers of your budget and your population, and then some information on if you had volunteers or staff time. And it does all the calculations to get those numbers, and then you have the town representative, the mayor, or the manager, or whatever position would be signing, and they sign it, and then you get your recognition materials every year. So it's quite a simple application, in my opinion. The hang up a lot of towns have is just knowing who's doing it, and they know that they're doing it, and they know to do it every year. So really that coordination is needed.
And do we get a little sign under the Rotary Club and Lions Club sign that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll say Tree City USA for blank years. So
Gotcha.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then for the proclamation, we have sample proclamations we can send
Oh,
over
yeah.
to you as like a template, and you're welcome to modify as needed.
Yeah.
Our state one is very different from the standard one there. So,
Okay.
and these books. One other thing I want to plug. Towards the end of the book, there's a link to it's called the Tree Board University, which is this online course that is free. That's it's put on from the U.S. Forest Service and Arbor Day Foundation. And if you really want to get into the weeds and explore a little bit more, it's a great opportunity for learning too. So,
Yeah.
and we're happy to send more of these out. We just brought 5 today, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe we could score a couple more.
Yeah,
at some point. Yeah. I like the. I think that you said that the easiest part was making a proclamation and having an Arbor Day celebration. But I think that was sort of a sticking point for us. We in previous meetings have discussed like, well, what would that look like, and is the Concom, if we are applying for accreditation, are we on the hook for like throwing this big party for the town, or how do we bring in other organizations that might be able to help throw that event, whether that's South Kingstown Land Trust or Boy Scouts or something like that.
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, any I think we felt confident that we were checking all the boxes, and that was the one that we came to where we just thought, well, how would we go about that? And when we had this discussion in the past, we were really close to this year's Arbor Day, so we said, all right, we'll table it, and hopefully by next year everything will be in a row.
And for the purposes of this Arbor Day, you can celebrate it any day of the year. It doesn't have to be on the last Friday of April. So, so you still plenty of time this year, and it doesn't have to be any large spectacle. It can be very simple. You can plant a tree, or you can not plant a tree, or just basically having a public recognition of Arbor Day, and then having that signed proclamation.
So a lot of towns, the Conservation Commission or the Tree Board is kind of the ones leading that and organizing that. It doesn't have to be, but that is what a lot do. And a lot of them partner with schools or, like you said, Boy Scouts, those sorts of things to kind of help have an audience of where the tree is being planted, and basically, or not planted, whatever you're doing. Basically, that proclamation is read in public.
Okay.
And yeah, it's advertised in some way that people can come by and see it. But we don't have like the proof for that is a photo or something that you've done it. It's not like we have staff going to everyone and making sure it's public enough or anything like that. So
Good.
that's definitely a flexible requirement.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many towns or how many municipalities in Rhode Island have achieved this accreditation? Or
We're
solved it?
at 15 right now.
15
Yep.
of 39.
39.
Nine.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And one idea that's come up is like, no offense whatsoever, is this fluff? You know, is this accreditation just optics? Are there any benefits, like tangible benefits, that come along with that accreditation, or are there any examples that come to your minds of other towns that have gotten it and something beneficial came through that channel?
Yeah, so there are some grants that our Urban and Community Forestry Grant Program. We have additional funding you can apply for if you're doing a tree planting grant. We limit that if you're not a Tree City USA. So that's one example. There are other grants. TD Bank has had grants where you at least at minimum get preferential treatment if you're a Tree City over other applicants. So there are a lot of things like that where it can help in your standing toward getting funding. You're also be part of the Tree City USA community, which sounds like fluff, but they do have a network of resources that for sharing and things like that.
Like the handbook and those sorts. There's a lot online as well.
Yeah.
Guidance and materials and that sort of thing.
And you're making your community visible as showing that you do care about trees, and it's putting basically keeping trees in people's minds, so that is, while somewhat fluff adjacent, I suppose.
But you can get a lot of stock, like
Yeah.
tree stock, at really discounted prices through the Arbor Day, because I know I've done that on all the houses I've ever owned.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of it.
I know our previous chair of the Concom had spoken with TJ Boudreau, and this idea of seeking accreditation had come up. And I think at the time he felt like it was putting the horse before the cart, because he didn't think that the town of South Kingstown was doing a lot or doing enough for the types of things that would be highlighted in here. But we had a discussion, and it sort of came to the idea that, this could be a good first step to show the town council, or just get some eyes on tree-related issues in the town, and that it's not necessary to wait until we're already doing those things to then get this accreditation. So,
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it is really the first step, and then from there they have what's called a growth award. So that's where when you're taking those next steps, doing your tree inventory, and that kind of is that next part of your progression.
Great. Anybody else have questions?
I do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I like what you just said, Matt. It's like act your way into thinking instead of thinking your way into acting.
Sure,
I
sure.
think that's great. When you talked about the long-term plan and the tree inventory, just tell us more what that looks like, what support you all could provide, others could provide, and how that's worked with other towns.
Sure. So we have, through our program, we have our Urban and Community Forestry Grant Program. So that used to be called the America the Beautiful Grant Program. So we offer 50-50 match grants of $2,000 to $10,000 in 3 categories. One is urban and community forestry program development or improvement. The other is education outreach, and then the third is tree planting. So and we have each of those categories weighted, so the highest weight goes towards that program development and improvement. So that's where we encourage people to take advantage of our grant program and make those next steps. So you could use that to either hire a contractor or to do a tree inventory. We also have resources that we can provide. We have a free inventory software available that we can give to communities through a national grant that we've been using in a number of communities now. So, so we
Is
have
that the tree equity analyzer?
no, it's called Accessible Urban Tree Inventory through a company called Forest Metrics.
Okay.
Is that bulletin 23, how to conduct the street tree inventory?
That
Or is that a piece of it?
That's a piece of it. So we have that bulletin would be a general kind of guide on what a tree inventory is and how to do that. We have the software available, and we can provide the training for tree ID and
Is
how
it like
to do the inventory.
itreetools.org? Is that where you find it, inside that site?
No, our specific program, it would be through. I think I don't have a direct link, but
Yeah,
if
it's not
you
an online
Googled
program.
Okay.
accessible urban tree inventory, they have a page for it on the Forest Metrics site. But I can send out the specifics on that. So we've been using it for a few years now. So we started with East Providence, where they applied for a grant with us, and they hired a seasonal intern that worked through the summer and basically managed groups of volunteers that did the data collection. So they ended up completing their full inventory within 1 year. And then, so that was their kind of their first step with us. And then the following year, they applied for an additional grant to do quality control, basically look at, check if there were any, errors, since it was volunteer collected. So they had a consultant come in and do that. And then also with the data that they collect, they also collect data on, the size and condition of trees. So they had the contractor go out and assess or do a risk assessment on a certain number of those trees that were larger size, that were rated as poor. So then they can get that information and then use that for their budget planning going forward.
And the software that we offer does have spots in there to write the condition and the size, and I'm the staff that's been starting a lot of the inventories for the town, and I go out and conduct a lot of them, and so I am not a certified risk assessor, but I have mentioned in some of them if I think it needs to be pruned, if I think it needs to be pruned right away, if I think it needs to be removed. And so then the idea is once you have that inventory, you can go back into that tree, update it the next year when you go see it again and say, it has been pruned, or it's been removed, or it needs to be removed now. So you can just keep track of what you're dealing with and what you have going on and the efforts you're making.
And it's also a record that you have inspected that tree. So if something should happen in the future, you can at least say, no, we were here at this time, and it was, according to our assessment, it was, in good condition, or we did, so.
So East Providence had not to interrupt.
Yep.
East Providence had volunteers.
Yes.
Collected data.
Yep.
And then the town vetted it. Town staff.
No, they applied for another grant and then had a consultant come in and then do
Okay.
the.
And then how did the town utilize the inventory that was complete?
Well, this is all recent enough, so I'm not sure what the next steps have been since then. That was just last year. So.
And was the town brought in on the discussions? The town staff, administration,
Yes.
DPW, and all those guys brought in the discussions early on.
Yeah. So we worked closely with one of their planners that kind of was the within city kind of point of contact, and then we also worked with their GIS team to provide maps for the surveyors to go out. So they had specific areas to cover to kind of keep it organized.
Now, when you undertake one of these inventories, you're looking at trees that are just in the right of way. Are there
Correct.
certain thresholds that you
Yep.
are?
Yeah. So from town to town, there may the actual right of way may vary.
Yeah.
So we reach out to see if you have that information, great, we'll use that. Otherwise, we've just been using a default 5 feet from the edge of the road, and then
Center of the trunk.
center. Of the,
Yeah, being 5 feet.
I have a
And
question.
so we've done sidewalk and lawn trees, that sort of thing.
I actually don't know the size of South Kingston, but I was just wondering, how, maybe Jay can fill us in, or maybe you already know it, how long it might take to do an inventory in the property of South Kingstown, and, would it be wise to or have some guidance on, I guess, prioritizing, what areas to do first? I mean, it might take a couple of years. I guess, with the
Yeah.
open space here.
Yeah, so it really depends on the kind of, it can be whatever the town finds most useful. So when we've been doing the inventories, we haven't done any parks or anything, because that really complicates things.
Yeah.
So we've only done street trees.
Oh.
For example, the first one I did last year was Central Falls, which obviously is very small, but has a lot of newly planted trees. I was able to do the entire city of Central Falls in less than 8 days. I was doing it full time, with a volunteer helping me. So that would be spread out if you're using volunteers doing a few hours at a time. But the other thing is, you don't have to inventory every single tree every single year. You could also kind of have it on a rolling basis to check in. You do a third of the town or half of it, and then the other half the next year. So
Right.
it's really whatever is most useful to the town.
Right. For monitoring.
Yeah.
And you could also separate out the urban, or either urban surface boundary or the urbanized area of the town, and just focus on those, and then leave the rural areas out of the initial survey. That would be
Sounds pretty complicated.
That's what we're here for.
There's different
Yeah.
ways-
That's
I
good,
mean,
that's good.
Just thinking off the top of my head, there's different ways of looking at it. I mean, we could go village by village.
Right.
If the villages are where the traffic and the people are concentrated. I don't think it would make a lot of sense doing an inventory like in Oswapog or Great Swamp, or areas like, that aren't of importance. But I think those details would need to be worked out with the town, because if we're gonna go through an effort to do this, we'd want it to have as much utility as possible.
Yep.
Yep.
So that DPS can pick it up and run with it.
Do you have something in mind of how DPS would run with this information?
I mean, aside from complementing the tree warden's duties with determinations on trees that need to be removed and budgets and everything else, I mean, yeah, no, I was just gonna say, Rich was here last month and he said, how much do they rely on National Grid or Rhode Energy to remove trees for us, because we don't have the budget to do it.
Other towns have also, for having many trees to balance of removal or pruning and taking care of them, the inventory can help as a way to sort of systematize that, because each tree will have a condition rating, and I'll if I'm doing it, I note if it needs a treatment. So you have all that data, you can go in and say, okay, what are all of my trees in poor condition? I'm going to focus on those. And so it can help crews, or if they see one street that's all ash tree and they're all in poor condition, that's definitely something they need to focus on. It also, every tree will have a spatial, it will have the lat and longe, so it has all the spatial data too.
Yeah, and mentioning ash trees, that's one of the things that a lot of communities I think missed out on, is that we had funding available for ash tree treatment, but you need to know where your ash trees are, and having that information at the ready, if another pest comes along, then you'll be that much more prepared for that.
Rich mentioned there's an arborist on his staff, right? Did I misunderstand that?
Jay,
I'm sorry?
There's an arborist on Rich's team
a full-time arborist for DPS?
who's separate
Full-time?
from the tree warden.
The tree warden is an
Zach Valier, I think.
I thought
Okay,
he mentioned there was an arborist on his staff that's not the tree warden, that's separate from the tree warden. Maybe I
Beth, do you know
misunderstood
what
it.
this is?
Could
This is
be.
on trees
Okay.
all
Yeah, I don't
over
know.
here, and I.
Just
I
to your
don't know,
question,
but yeah.
Jay
know what this
referenced
stuff
how
is, but
this
it's all
inventory would be
throughout
used
our
by the tree
trees.
warden, but I'm
Yeah.
also curious,
Look
like,
at
if,
that.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, sure.
We just need to have one conversation at a time because of the video.
Oh, yeah.
if there's an arborist on staff, understanding what that person's role is and how, if an inventory could be useful to them, or
Yeah.
if they've even done some inventories already, like
Yeah,
not
yeah,
assuming
yeah.
that they haven't done some of that work, would be helpful to know.
I think after last month, it wouldn't be a surprise to say that, DPS is strapped.
Yeah.
DPS is not gonna be undertaking a tree inventory.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's more
But
historical.
if this
yeah.
is something that Concom can initiate with their input, run with it, and they can provide some guidance along the way. I think we are a large town.
Mhm.
I was just looking at the numbers. South Kingstown is 56 square miles.
How big Central Falls?
1.3.
Yeah, much bigger.
Yeah.
1.2?
Yeah, 1.2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe
So
it's
it
the
was
largest,
64 hours to do.
geographically, it's the largest
Central Falls.
town in the state.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
That's
Did you
interesting.
say 56?
56. Well,
Okay.
I mean, according to Wikipedia, Coventry is larger,
Oh, yeah?
59. Then Exeter is 57.4, and then we're 56.4.
And what was the decimal in Central Falls?
1.2.
Yeah, 1.2 square miles.
1.20.
But there's a lot less green space in between the streets.
Right. I'm wondering what our urban area space is, like if we were to focus on the village by village.
Well, in my head, the program manager in me, the project manager in me is saying, all right, if you're gonna start something like this, pick a primary route through some of the primary villages that are gonna be relatively easy, and kind of polish the process as to what you do, how you do it, what it looks like, and then try to build off of that.
And I do think that we could actually get, so that comes out to something like 3,000 hours if we're basing it on your 64 hours for Central Falls. But
Yeah.
in any
Yeah.
case, it's definitely a bigger lift than some towns. But I think that volunteers this is something that we could see a lot of volunteers interested in. So every land trust in the state that has accreditation, not through Tree City USA, but a land trust, American Land Trust Alliance, yeah.
Land trust line, too.
They have to do monitoring for all of their properties. So this includes Audubon Society, TNC, and I know a lot of those land trusts employ volunteers to use this. There's something called Landscape that Audubon and South Kingstown Land Trust use, I know. And like SKLT has 30 or so people, I think, every year that monitor those properties. So getting people trained up on how to use an app or how to input data, and that's something that definitely could be done. And I think in the case of monitoring some of these properties, people are having to bushwhack, and in these cases you could just walk down a sidewalk. So
Or
that
drive
appeals
in a lot of them too. If you can just drive by, you get a whole street done instantly. If you see there's no trees in the right of way, it can go quite quickly actually.
Yeah, I
Could
can
you-
think of a lot of areas in the town
Yeah.
here that it would just be driving and
Just checking off
Okay.
if the street was done, yeah.
Can you give an example of, you are obviously a pro at this, but can you give an example of what it looks like when you go down the street? Not one that's quite as simple as just driving down, but if you see a tree that you want to make some notes on,
Mhm.
so like just sort of in a like a very layman's
Yeah.
description, like you approach the tree.
Yeah.
What are you looking at? What are you writing down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually I do it with one other person, and one of us has the iPad that has the software on it, and then one of us is the one doing all the measurements. So I'll speak as the person doing the measurement, but we see the tree. I stand a couple dozen feet away, and I use a tool to get the height of the tree. We mark, and then I'll get closer to the tree, and we mark the species, the diameter at breast height, so that's about 4.5 feet off the ground. It's just a rough estimate of size. And then we write down the height. We give it a rough condition rating, so if it's good, fair, poor, or dead.
How do you measure the height? Do you climb it?
The clinometer, no, we do not climb the tree. We shoot a laser at it, and it does all the math for us.
Perfect.
DEM issues a grappling hook.
Yeah.
But like even species identification, the volunteers have to be trained, because I know I have a degree in forestry resource management. It's a full year class to
Yeah, so
learn how to ID a tree, so.
yeah, I'll get back to that because that's a good point. So we do the condition rating, and then I'll also mark just any sort of issues I'm seeing. So if there's a big decay, I'll click a checkbox that says decay, or I'll mark that the roots are girdling, or that maybe it was planted too deep. And then
Does the software kind of walk you through all of these?
yep, it's a checkbox, so it has all the options open. There is a spot for other. I add notes if I want to, take a picture if I want to, and then I get the GPS location. Our iPad has 5G, so it does it all right in the software, and then we move on to the next one. Once we get going, we can do a tree in a minute and a half, probably less, honestly. So it can go quite quickly once you get it down. And that being said, again, you could make it as simple. You don't have to do heights. You don't have to do, every sort of issue that you're seeing. Speaking of species, having the species is definitely helpful. So you know that you have 10% of your canopy is Norway maple. Probably shouldn't be planting Norway maple anymore anyway, so it helps to know that. But also, really what's helpful is the genus, because that is more easy to identify. if they're ever unsure, they can just write maple species, and maybe another time when somebody's doing the inventory and they have a little bit better ID, they can make it more accurate. Yeah, it can be updated. It's not like set in stone. So
it's not connected. So are those like picture this apps where you can
Yeah.
actually take a photo of the leaf and it identifies it for you? Does
Yeah.
it have anything built in?
It doesn't have it
No.
built
Okay.
in, but we recommended the iNaturalist, where you could create like a group, and then if you had any unknown ones, someone could log in and,
Oh, cool.
and ID it for you.
Okay.
So that was something that we encouraged.
Is
not
that
sure.
free software? Or do
Yep.
you-
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And then, we have some other guides. So New York City, when they did their tree inventory, they put together a guide of the 20 or 30 most
Yeah.
common street trees. So that covers a lot of what you're going to see.
a lot of them
so
are going
that's-
to be the same.
That's
species,
handy. And we
yeah.
also put together some additional resources that you can load right on your iPad. Just pull it up.
And if you do continue to go with this inventory, these types of questions and help and refining your plan is exactly what we're here for. So our emails and our phones and our time is open again, so we can always help out as you're planning this out, and you want to make sure you have the right plan going forward.
That's great. Have you worked with a town to, once you're done the inventory, to then do that long-term planning?
Partial. So
We're in the process.
Yeah, we're in the process. Yeah, so we're working on through the Inflation Reduction Act. We have this technical assistance program through where we're working with this nonprofit called Green Infrastructure Center. So we're working in a number of communities that apply to that program. So we're kind of going through. We do a code and ordinance audit, do a canopy analysis. Provide all the information on what their the ecosystem services that their urban forest is providing. So we're giving them all of that data and then putting together a final plan. We're calling it's essentially a master plan, or like a large scale plan for the urban forest. They're calling it strategic strategic tree canopy plan. That's what they're calling it. But so we're going to have one of those in each of 8. Actually, there'll be 11 total when we're done with the program. So.
Do you have a ranking of the 39 towns as to who's completed these inventories the most?
Well, Providence has been doing it the longest, I believe. And then
And the city of Providence has a commitment to plant some huge number of trees
yeah,
over the next
yeah, and they have
decade or
their
so, right?
Providence Neighborhood Planting Program that
Right.
does
And the tree
quite a bit of
plan,
yeah. So I think they're probably, I would say, the long term longest. Newport and Bristol have had inventories for a while, and then since then we've added East Providence, Jamestown, Barrington, Warren, Central Falls.
Just started North
Yeah,
Providence.
just started North Providence. So
And there's
Narragansett's a tree city, but I don't know if they're doing the inventory.
Right.
Are they working on it? Where are they at?
I
We have a
think,
meeting with
yeah,
them
we have
to
a
talk
meeting with
about
them to
that.
talk about that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I did talk to their president of their conservation commission. He said they did do one. They're working on one, or I guess they have some tree inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some communities have had done them in the past where they're, basically an Excel sheet of, the trees at each address, and, which is useful, at a point in time. But
Those are
we
hard
really
to
want,
keep updated.
Yeah.
That's what's useful about this software. It's easy to, every time a tree gets visited, to
Yep.
update it with that visit information.
And can you, in this software, or can this software speak with another software that lets you use GIS, like to look at it? Like, could you scroll through as a map of the town and like zoom in and see trees highlighted, like as a
Yeah.
GIS layer?
you can export it as a KML file, which you can import into GIS.
But
So
it
that's-
wouldn't be like built
yeah.
into this. There's not
Yeah.
like a tab in the software to open up the map.
So East Providence has it uploaded on their website, so you can look at it there.
That's the dream for me. It's like, I love data points and just being able to view a map of the town and just sort of like zoom in and see exactly what's going on.
So you said the inventory doesn't have a map?
Google Earth.
It does when you're placing the GPS point. It pulls up a map on the screen. But within the software itself, there's no, like, you can't pull up the map of all the trees all at once. You'd have to export it.
Okay.
But you
But
can.
each
yeah.
tree will have a latitude and
Yeah,
longitude.
all right, so,
Yeah.
so after, let's say we did High Street, we inventoried High Street, and we're done with that inventory. Is the inventory itself managed entirely through the software, like, is that, it's, okay. I'm just trying to think, if we wanted to pull that out and actually use it for GIS, use it for town services, we'd have to be pulling it out do an export every year or some
Yeah.
regular time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I mean,
So-
all of the data points that the town has in their GIS, I mean, they must have to do that anyway from all these different information sources.
It depends.
I mean, some things don't change here to
The
here.
reason why I'm asking is because we do employ, in one or two instances, we employ mobile GIS, field maps,
Mm.
and we have, like, DPS goes around checking, doing maintenance on catch basins, and they do regular routine maintenance in the field with a handheld.
Mm.
That is just constantly, that's using the GIS data and constantly overwriting it.
Yeah.
Not something like this where it's another standalone application you gotta pull it out of. But what is the difference between this inventory software and developing a simple online form with GIS that a mobile user could go out and hit a button and be standing in front of a tree with a form with 5 questions?
Yeah, it's really up to just what the town would find most useful. So this software was built for the intention of taking a tree inventory. So it has like
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but multiple users can have full access to it, or?
Yes. Yeah, so it can get hosted on the cloud,
Yeah.
and then multiple users can update it. So one thing I should mention, so it runs on a program called FileMaker, which is free on iOS devices. There is a cost for having it on a PC. It's about $600 or so. So we've been encouraging communities to, when you're going to do the inventory, apply to our grant program, get that covered so that it ends up on a computer and not just on an iPad that ends up in a drawer somewhere. So they just want to make sure there is that cost as well. But,
I mean, I'm just thinking about the benefits of that. If it sounds like that system might be more useful for a bunch of volunteers that can use it here and there. Because with Esri, with the GIS stuff, we have to pay a user license, like $500 for each mobile user.
Well,
Yeah.
So-
Couldn't we start with something like Google Earth here and just go in and look at all the tree? I'm looking at the tree in the parking lot right here that's next to the building we're in. I mean, you could actually go street by street and see where you could see the crowns as they come over into the street. Obviously, this is aerial stuff, but
yeah, and what point of time is it? And so one of the advantages of the inventory software too is that it catalogs repeated visits to each individual tree, so you can chart, especially if you have somebody that keeps calling about their tree, you can go and get that record of, yes, we checked it.
But when I'm
Sure.
planning out the
Yeah, that's okay.
when I'm planning out the inventories I'm doing, I do that. I
like look
plan
here
out the
and see
routes
like
and
where am I going to go and how many trees do I need to hit
right,
today?
roughly, yeah.
Yeah, because it's convenient and
Mhm.
it shows you. I know I've looked at my own property for years. I lived overseas for 17 years, but I could look on here and literally go to my house.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily live, but it's within days of.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how the satellites work and take the pictures, but it's really quite fascinating.
It's just your house, Karen.
It's everything. Right now, it's us. I'm looking at the building we're in and the tree that's out there next to my car. I'm not seeing my car because it's not right now. It's not live like that. But I
You
can
had
s-
left to come to the meeting already.
But I can see there's a full. This is when there were a lot of cars out there, but I don't think it's as full as this right now. But yeah, it's kind of cool. Because you can at least get the idea of what trees are on the path of what your plan is for the day. One would think
Exactly,
the trees,
yeah.
because trees last for a while, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a pretty good
Mhm.
point in time to use. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's free.
who have you seen taking point, like being the point person in towns for organizing these volunteers? I know you mentioned other tree boards and Concoms. Was it members of those groups that Yeah, I'm just trying to find the
Yes.
where the seam is between
Yeah.
Yep.
like this actually getting off the ground and knowing that people in this commission don't always have lots of time outside of these meetings and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yep. Yeah. So Barrington and Bristol, Barrington and Jamestown, they both use their tree commissions to collect data. And then in Cranston, we worked with the Edgewood neighborhood. So there's the Edgewood Waterfront Preservation Association. They did the inventory specifically for their neighborhood, and they hired Doug Still, who was a former City of Providence city forester, to manage and oversee their volunteers. So it's an example of using a consultant as opposed to like the East Providence used an intern.
Yeah.
It's really just important to have
Unpaid
some.
intern. That's that.
Oh no, it was a paid intern, but yeah. But yeah, it's just really important to have, especially if you're having lots of people going in and out. You need to have that one point person that's kind of keeping
Somebody's
everything.
got to
in.
collect all the
Yeah.
iPads. And,
Yeah.
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 For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, does anyone have thoughts on who, not, I mean, it doesn't have to be like a first and last name, but just who might be a person in the town who could,
Well, I don't know if we're there yet. I would like, personally, I'd like to see what the software looks like for another municipality that's using it,
Mhm.
and how they use it, and how they were able to integrate it, and what they did, so we can, again, I think we gotta start small, and we've gotta.
Yeah.
um,
I guess I'm just assuming if we liked it, if we liked the sound of it and it was something we wanted to undertake, then what? How do we?
it would have to be breaking the town up, prioritizing the areas that we wanna start with and hit,
Yeah.
figure out the interest and who's willing to help do it, and how many roads, how much, what it's gonna take to. I think initially probably wanna start small. It might be good just to start with the board and take on maybe one village and a dozen streets or whatever it's gonna be, and start with that, and then come back and look at it after we do it. So what does that look like?
Yep.
How did it feel? What was the experience?
That's a thought.
Share it with DPS at the same time and say, hey, you know what, it'd be great if you could, I don't know, take a picture of the routes and see if there's any sidewalk damage, or
Mhm.
pick something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But they might be able to have some input on it too, and then if you build off of that, you might. I mean,
Or even like, what about contacting the land trust who already has 30 volunteers that are willing to do? Now they've already got people who are like, yeah, we want to go out and
Yeah,
figure
but
out
you,
the trees.
but
And
you, I would, if it was my decision and I was running this, making a decision on this, I would want to make sure that everybody knew exactly, one, how it was going to run and how the system was going to run and what you were doing. Two, how it's going to be implemented and what we're going to use it for. So that if you put a call out for 50 people show up, and you're like, oh, hey, what am I doing? You're never going to get people on this. But if you guys, like, let's say you start with, it maybe once you get used to it, you ask sustainability to come in and say, hey, you guys want to help us out? This is what we're doing. Any interest? And then you just kind of, the more people that you have that have a core understanding of everything,
Yeah.
makes it easier when you try to go out, because those other people are going to have questions. They're not going to do it right. There needs to be a level of, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'm sure there's got to be a level of consistency with
Mhm.
how you
That's yeah.
collect the data,
Mhm.
and what.
Yeah, you should
what
have
the
a
direct-
protocol.
What people's tolerances are for trimming or removal or.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we have a guide that kind of breaks down, what makes a tree considered good condition versus fair versus poor versus dead. Dead.
But you definitely want to like calibrate everyone who's doing
Yeah.
it. So when I have a volunteer, this year we have an intern, we spend the first few days, we both rate the tree, and we sometimes have different ratings, and so we spend a little bit of time just making sure we're both having the same eye. So yeah, you definitely want to start with a smaller group to begin with, make sure everybody like has a consistent, rating, because a lot of it is qualitative. So, and then maybe those handful of folks could each go out and they would have an assistant with them that day. So I definitely recommend starting small and starting with a small part of the town. Prove it works. You don't want to bite off too much and then you have kind of useless data and then it goes nowhere. So
Yeah. The other thing We have with our last couple inventories have started producing a summary report for them, so
Yeah, oh, yeah, I
we
was
can
gonna say,
share.
we
You
should
know,
do that, too.
we did one with Warren. We can show you kind of what the information you're getting. We give you the breakdown of species and recommend and provide recommendations.
Yeah.
So I think seeing
And
that
I can
might be
also
helpful.
show you
yeah.
like there's YouTube videos as well. I have this sheet too. I'm gonna hand out that it names the software we use. They have a YouTube page. They have a bunch of videos of how to use the software and that sort of stuff. So.
Is
Yeah.
that Forest Metric
Mm-hmm.
Pro?
It's not pro. So this is a pared down version. That makes it basically free.
Yeah.
So it's taking out a lot of the things that you wouldn't be using anyway.
Yeah.
But
When you do an export from that,
Yep.
Do the attributes come with it?
many of them do, not all of them. When you're exporting it into
Like a
the
shapefile
KML. Yeah.
image,
So some of those will drop off. But
Are they important?
no, I mean it depends what you're considering for it. But you're getting enough data, and if there's something that you want to keep on, we have a close relationship with the developer, so they can change that and add things as needed. The other thing is this can this what's nice since this is free or very low cost. This could also get imported into another software later down the road if you decided that you wanted to go with one of the bigger products or integrate it some other way with your ArcGIS program.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about this from the town side,
Yeah.
saying that, okay, if this program were to be put in place and we would use it, it would result in a tree inventory. Then what do we do with it?
Mm-hmm.
The tree inventory would then become part of a tree management plan.
Mm-hmm.
So the data from the inventory should come out and be able to be highlighted in the management plan, which would then be able to prioritize objectives and budget based on.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is why I was like,
Yeah.
if there's an export,
Yeah.
where the attributes come with it, and we bring it to GIS, and
Yes.
we would go into a mobile environment
Mhm.
with it, that our GIS crews can still work with it, knowing that
Yep.
there's a connection that needs to be maintained between the two.
Yep.
Also in the report that I've made for Warren and Central Falls, I create some diagrams of the species composition. So it'll show you have 12% cherry trees or whatever. And then I also make one for the diameter distribution, so it shows there's this many small trees and this many big trees. So if you happen to find many medium to large size trees, you can use that as proof to a town budget or a plan coming forward. Say, hey, we have a lot of big trees we're gonna have to deal with quickly.
Mhm.
We need, we need something, we need money or we need whatever, we need to help
Like
that.
the
And it's-
maturity level of the tree, so we know.
Exactly,
what's-
yeah.
It helps
And
justify
it's
it,
and
yeah.
it's one diagram. It sees it right there, and it's
Yeah.
real data from the town.
And you could also incorporate the data into your hazard mitigation planning with
Mhm.
What are your evacuation routes? Now you have X number of poor rated condition trees within these areas.
That might be a good way to start in the evacuation routes.
Mm.
Right there, select
Yeah.
few. The problem is though, is that many of them are gonna be state roads. And do we exclude, do we,
No, we include
We've
those.
done
you
those,
include,
Yeah.
you include them?
Yeah.
Do you designate on the form that it's in the state right of way
You
versus
can.
you can?
You also, I forgot to mention, you also can mark off if there's a wire conflict, so you can see how many trees are growing under wires. And note that challenge.
So many, because they run the same lane.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now,
That's right.
does Rhode Island Energy do anything similar?
They have different.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're doing now. They have
They have
some.
Probably
that
like
map that
yeah.
they have those like heat areas
Yeah.
that they.
So
It's,
they
yeah, it's not
probably-
quite the same.
They probably just do it different. They probably
Yeah,
just
they
look
do
at
it based
from a
on their
conflict
yeah,
and hazard,
exactly. And they
which is kind of what
yeah,
we're doing,
touching-
but not at the level that they are.
Yeah, and they also I saw a presentation about it. They also use they have a way to know, okay, this line will then feeds to this many people, so like that
Yeah.
prioritizes
Yes.
taking care of these. So it's very complex for those what they're doing. Yeah.
Do you have a list of grants, that are available in the grant cycles? I mean, that certainly would be obviously very helpful to us.
Yes.
Great.
So we have our grant program. The next round assuming, you know, we're under a continuing resolution right now, whether the urban forestry budget remains the same, we're still waiting to find out. So if we really get cut, then we might have to cut the grant program, but all
Based
of
on
our-
federal, is it a federal funding thing?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
that's
all,
good.
yeah.
So, but current plans are that we're going to have it again and have it go live in October. And we may have additional funds left over from this past year. So, something that you're interested in doing sooner than later, I can see if there's something that we could maybe reopen our grant program from last year.
And
Is that the
remind,
UCF? I'm sorry.
Yes. Yep.
The UCF grant.
Yep.
and remind us, do we need to be designated Tree City to take advantage of that, or is that separate?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's separate. Yeah.
And you had mentioned in the webinar that you gave in December, you mentioned another grant, the Tree Equity Rhode Island Grant Program.
Yes. Yeah, that's the
That's
second
still
grant
open?
program. That's still that will still be that's closed for this year. We're going to be reopening it again in the fall, and that offers larger tree. It's a larger tree planting grant that is for $10,000 to $25,000. Could be up to $50,000, and it is for tree planting, larger tree planting projects focusing on tree equity. So there's a program that we developed with American Forests called the Tree Equity Score Analyzer. It's a specific tool for Rhode Island that gives you a score for different neighborhoods based on how well the canopy and it's looking at canopy and then also socioeconomic factors. And basically it's a way to show where the places are that need to get planted the most. So the way the grant's set up is that you use that tool to kind of guide your tree planting project. Then you apply for the funds to do the tree planting.
And that's a federally funded.
That is not. That is funded through the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative.
Gotcha.
So
And we could access that tool anytime? Is that?
the tool, yes,
Mhm.
yep.
Okay.
That's
That might be another way to guide our prioritization.
yeah. So that's treeequityscore.org.
Okay.
So
And I'll send a follow-up email tomorrow, so I'll have links to all this kind of stuff we're talking about.
yep. And that there's a national analyzer and then there's the Rhode Island specific tool. So you just want to go to the Rhode Island one.
So
When we do our inventory here in South Kingstown, would we also include that line along the Trustham Wildlife Refuge? Given that is that considered our South Kingstown property as well when it's like a federally mandated wildlife refuge, and there's a lot of trees along that Matunic Schoolhouse Road.
Sure. I would say if they're trees that the town is responsible for maintaining, then I would include them.
Probably within that 5 whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're in the
Yeah.
right of
Yeah,
way, then
okay.
Yeah. We typically exclude if it's like a wood lot, we would exclude that, or like a forested area. We're really looking at the individual trees that are getting serviced
Okay.
for the most part.
And I haven't done any town parks or anything, just for time and, you know.
Because that's part of our evacuation route coming out
Oh,
of
yeah.
Green Hill.
Yeah.
We're on the South Shore, and that's one of the things we have to follow is right along there.
Yeah.
So I
that
was
would definitely
thinking-
be good to know what's going on
Yeah,
there.
that would be a good place to inventory.
Mhm.
I thought that was a good idea you said there, Jay, about making that like maybe the start where we know what trees we're dealing with. And that's a time, especially with mature, likely to go down trees that might be on the
Mhm.
evacuation route. That would be beneficial to have that inventory.
Mhm.
You know, maintain the things that need to look at. Yeah.
Trees always go down on Middlebridge Road.
Middlebridge, it happens there.
It's always closed off after a
Oh
storm.
my. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Has anyone tied their Arbor Day Foundation to like getting volunteers to do their tree inventories, or just kind of combines that celebration but also getting more
That's
interest
clever.
and support?
Yeah, you certainly could. And if you were going to be applying for a grant for the inventory, you could have two parts of your grant application and have one be for, for a Arbor Day event. So for a tree planting for the Arbor Day event, you could include that. Can't have food as part of the budget, but but it was
haven't
something you
heard
could
that.
at least include. So we want to encourage people to get the Tree City. So that's another.
Yeah, I haven't heard
part
of
it.
anyone doing that, but
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it is. It's a great idea, Kate.
Yeah, so, a question though, I know you mentioned that you don't usually use parks, but I would think those are the locations where you're hosting many Arbor Day events, schools. So it tends to go onto the public property more than,
Yeah.
and not just within the, the proximity of the roads.
Yeah.
And I think that's good for education, so,
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, going forward, you could actually just track the trees and
Yeah.
just as a demonstration thing for kids, for instance, if it's school setting
Yeah.
or like the community, athletic areas and event areas here in town. So,
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've only not done them because of limitations on my
Sure.
time, and so but
and they're very
definitely think-
concentrated,
right,
and
it just is. It's a different way of making sure you know which ones you've already done and which ones you didn't. And I just haven't done them, but they're definitely useful. It's definitely really helpful information. And like you said, if you have younger kids helping with that, it's safer to do that in a park than on a
Yeah.
busy street or that sort of thing.
I mean, probably the farthest realization of this would be to inventory every tree that's on town property, and that includes big wooded areas that, I
Right.
mean, are just totally unfeasible.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you could do. There are tools for a canopy assessment using spatial imagery that
Yeah.
would kind of handle those sort of wooded areas to supplement the actual inventory.
So I put up an evacuation route map on the screen to give you an idea.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty self-explanatory, but I mean, like, if you could imagine doing a tree inventory on Ministerial Road running north-south there, the blue one on the left.
Mm-hmm.
That might take a little bit of time, might be a little difficult, and I'm still kind of unclear with how you have a level of surety with knowing you're in a certain proximity to the right of way. Like, or, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
you are in fact in the right of way or not.
Yeah.
And especially in those areas, like
Totally.
Ministerial Road.
Yeah.
in the middle of it.
It's also
That's
tough.
So-
where the-
Ministerial doesn't have a sidewalk. It's not a.
Yeah.
It's not a safe place
What-
to be asking.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but you could end up on a strip.
Yep.
Where the trees are close to the road, but that right of way is actually 15 feet bigger on either side, and it's grabbing entire swaths of trees, and you're
Mhm.
sitting there going, oh shit, what do we do?
Yeah. So you
You
could.
should have signed up for Main Street.
So once you do the initial data collection, what you could do, since we're plotting them, on the maps themselves, when you export it to the shapefile, you could put those buffers in and then look to see if there are any trees that were counted that shouldn't have been,
Kind of
or
drop them over
yeah.
on your parcel map.
Yep.
And as I've been going on,
Right on.
like what I do.
Oh,
no,
not to
no.
interrupt you, but does the inventory software, do you upload parcel data to that? Does
No,
it-
unfortunately
It's
not.
not a mapper,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah.
locator.
Yep.
Okay.
And when I'm doing the inventory, when I'm on a street without a sidewalk, if there's a lot of times the tree is touching the road, but if it's not, I'll just stick my tape in half of the trunk and walk it and check if it's 5 feet to the curb or to the end of the lawn. And it's definitely not perfectly accurate, but it gets the job. But if you have that information of on this street it's actually 15 feet,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah, and there's lots of there's lots of steps you can take down the road to refine it further and further.
Mhm.
But
But this is also helpful
yeah.
too. I was thinking you have those areas that are prone to certain levels of flooding too. And if you have the tree data there, you can also, that's also a lot of really helpful information of
It's
if,
a high
if
hazard
it,
area.
if it floods and a lot of these trees can't handle, if it's species that are not tolerant of flooding or that sort of thing, that's really helpful information to know.
Yeah, it's in a way, it's frustrating that I feel like this is all information that someone in every town should be paid to. And like we should already have all this information. It's,
Starts with a con-con.
yeah, I know. But I mean, this could all be like any time there's a dispute on private property of someone saying, "Is this tree's not healthy? It's in my yard, or is it?" Then someone from the town comes out and assesses and shoots, has an engineer or whoever, and shoots where that town right away is, and determines if that individual tree is on or not. But like in a perfect world, all this data would already be in the computer, and someone could just say, "Oh yeah, tree number 25681. That's 75%.
Just fell on my
town
car.
property.
2,501 just fell on my car.
Ooh, we could do what they do out west
Dang.
with the hibernating brown bears. You know, you give them names, and like people are like seeing which one's gonna wait. We could make like celebrities out of our town. People could
Make people fall in love with their
t-shirts.
tree.
Yeah. Vote for your favorite tree.
Yeah, sure.
That black X that's on there, just above the Tuckertown, Curtis Corner, not Curtis Corner, the Tuckertown Ministerial, the black X to the north, all the way up. Yes, that's right exactly where that tree is that I'm telling you that I've been trying to get the limb cut off, that black X. It's that far from the stop sign north on Ministerial, and I'm like, they've already marked my tree that's gonna fall the next storm we have. Oh my God. Yeah, I still watch it now that we've got full tree crown. It's scary deadly because it hasn't got a leaf on it, so you know that is a dead limb that's out over the tree, over the line of the road.
Yeah, it's a good time to
I'm
point
just,
out the dead trees.
that thing needs to come down. So they never answer my messages.
I'm just wondering, like, would these guys, if they were interested in doing something like this, could they do a pilot, like a small?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we did with Cranston in that neighborhood.
Edgewood that you were talking
Edgewood,
about,
yep,
yeah.
yep.
And I could help too. I could come out and, you know, teach everyone the inventory. We could do a couple test trees. I've done that in Warren. I've done that with a few volunteers and stuff. So I could definitely come out for the day if we want to do a little pilot. I could help you plan out.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm most happy to come out and get out of the office for a few
Yeah.
days.
I
For
mean,
some time too.
I
So
mean, when you look at if this is something that we would start with, I mean, that is a tall order. Those are the main veins that run through the town.
Mm.
That's all of Morrisfield Road 138. It's all of Ministerial, all Route 1.
South Road would take a year, I think.
You
I
would-
drive that every day and I look at
But
those
I also
trees.
think you would want to go from Monsignor Clark down Old
Yep.
Tower Hill Road, down Main Street to Route 1, like High Street, the main arterials, and.
Yep.
But again, I think starting small and then getting an idea, and then you cut people loose on
Mm-hmm.
a larger part of it.
Yep.
It'd also give you an idea of just how much you can cover.
Mm-hmm.
In the example where you're driving down the street and things are going quickly, are you just looking for trees that have some level of damage, like on that 1 through 5 scale? Are you just saying, oh, these all look very healthy and that's why we're moving quickly through it?
Usually that's on just a street that clearly nothing is within the right of way.
Okay.
So it's a lawn that has nothing
Got it.
near close, or it's a paved street that has nothing planted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is another strategy outside
You
of
can also
outside of
do that, though,
inventories.
yeah.
If it's called like a level 1 assessment where it's basically doing a risk assessment as like a windshield survey. That's another thing, but yeah.
What's
Well-
the name of that road, the blue one?
Ministerial,
Ministerial.
Route 110.
Route 110.
When
Just
I
trying to
have to
see
go
if
north,
it's
I always
clear
take that. I don't take Route 1. I always take Ministerial every day. Because it's a nicer ride. Oh my God, please. Sometimes I do the jog to Route 2. I work in North Kingstown a lot and I work in East Greenwich a lot. And I do all that little, I never go on Route 1, man. It makes me crazy. People coming in to 80 miles an hour now and 0 on the hook. Dangerous. Boy, I look at that every day. It gives me a heart attack. I get off and take the road less traveled, the scenic route, definitely. But now it's baby squirrels have just left the nest and they're all playing and they're not paying attention. They haven't figured out these cars are dangerous.
It's definitely baby wildlife season.
Yeah, it
across
is.
the
It's
board.
really big right now. Especially I go at about 6 a.m. So
Yeah.
I get to see them all waking up and they're all feisty.
Yeah, I was just looking at it on Google Maps, and those trees definitely go pretty close to the
Oh,
to
yeah.
the street. So it just depends on what the right of way is, but that is
Yeah,
that
something
area
like that.
could be more useful with the canopy assessment.
And one step to the right, you're in the swamp. You know, did you
Yeah.
see all that green? Yeah, it's like water. So when people go off road there, man, their car is like
So-
swamped.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that could be an area where you do the canopy assessment, but then maybe as you're going through, if you see any, you know, really scary trees or trees that are really close, you could mark those as needed.
Yeah, and in that case, that's my daily commute
Mhm.
for about 30 years at URI, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to see that regularly, and it gets a lot of attention from the former National Grid, the entity that
Yeah.
deals with removing
Definitely.
problem
Right.
limbs and whatnot. So it's actually been because you'll say they're still here, and they'll work their way down and do it,
Yeah.
which is surprising in some ways.
Yeah.
The utility operations are that attentive to
Mhm.
it. So.
Totally.
Jay, is there, if we're just looking at a few of these major arteries in town, could we get a pretty clear answer, and not just saying it's 5 feet from the edge of the road, but we might be able to, with ministerial, for instance, say, like, yeah, for the most part, the average is 8 feet, or do we have that information? Or someone has to go out and.
I'm looking at it thinking that you might have to just say like within 10 feet of the paved roadway.
Yeah.
And
You
then-
think 10 is a better?
I don't know, I'm gonna show
Guide.
you, oh, no, I don't want that.
I just know it's like 2 feet in some places and
Mhm.
10 feet in others, and yeah.
Yeah, so this is ministerial. And like, here's the right of way,
Yeah.
Mm.
but it differs. You know,
How accurate is that? Oh yeah, it's
Uh,
always waving all over the place.
not accurate enough that you can say that's where the boundary is, but it's close.
Yeah.
It's close. But you know, like here, you got very limited room, then you got a ton of room.
Sure.
So
Yeah, like
because
if it
the
were me-
utilities on one side.
There's no shoulder to pull off anywhere along there. Yeah.
If it were me walking this and using that software, I would be running like landscape, or there's a program called Onyx that I use. It's
Mhm.
geared towards hunters, but like it has pretty good property boundary indicators. And
Mhm.
you know, whenever I do monitoring for SK Land Trust and for Audubon Society of Rhode Island, and I'm always using like multiple apps to just double check or get as much data as I can on, am I on the property I think I'm on, or
Yeah.
how close to the line am I? So yeah, I mean, just to say that the tech savviness of volunteers could increase the efficacy of this.
Or you could have you or one person go out and kind of get a better idea being able to track exactly where the right of way or what it is, and you could get an idea of how many trees you are dealing with, and then come up with, you know, maybe an easier cutoff for volunteers to then follow, so that not everybody is doing that sort of measuring and tracking and everything.
I'll drive down the road with a red can of spray paint and put an X on every tree. That's it.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Cool.
That's why I'm kind of like it. It's almost like you need both.
Yeah.
It's almost like you need this to get an idea where the boundary is, where the
Yeah.
right of way is.
Yeah.
You see going down how it
Yeah.
Varies.
bumps back and forth. Yeah. You can't just say it's 8 feet along the left side.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, if you came up with a policy, interpret you saying like, look, we're gonna grab the trees within 20 feet, but pick a number, on both sides of the road, you do it, and then you come back, we extract it
You
and
can
plot
eliminate,
them,
yeah.
and we delete the ones that fall on the other side of the line,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and say, this is the best we can do with the data that we have.
Yeah, we'd obviously have to be careful about volunteers trespassing on private property then. So.
Yeah, and normally when we do a street tree inventory, something like these areas that are full like forest stands, we wouldn't be inventorying individual trees even if they were within that public right of way. That's something that you'd want to do more of that.
Canopy assessment.
Not necessarily canopy assessment, more the windshield survey
Oh,
or
yeah,
just
yeah.
like a risk
Okay.
assessment, just to identify anything, and that's something that you'd want to do on a regular basis, just for reducing the town's liability.
So not take height and DBH and on
Right,
the tree,
right.
just.
You just
Yep.
say this is a.
Generalize an
Yeah.
area, basically, is
Yeah.
that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you see something that you would consider to be
concern.
a concern, then you could send somebody back to take a second look and get closer and look at all sides of the trees, see if it's something that would need to be removed. But
So like specifics on that individual tree that seems hazardous like that.
yeah, the important thing is to have a consistent plan on how you're doing that. So is there a schedule? You know, you're looking at each of these trees, you know, once a year, once every 5 years, just something that you have by just having that in there and showing that you have a plan in place will reduce the town's liability for if anything happened.
And I will say, you guys are kind of ahead of the curve having a map so readily accessible with all the right of ways. So that's already a,
Yeah.
We have,
You're ahead of some
we have
other
30
towns.
years of we have
Yeah.
more than 3 decades of GIS data, and
Yeah.
we've been committed to GIS for a long time. So
That's great.
we don't have that problem, which is why I start thinking of saying, well, what would it cost to buy a couple of user licenses and do it? But then that limits your personnel, that limits the ability if they can use it.
Have any towns, maybe you already answered this, have any towns used either of these grants or any other funding to hire someone for a year to just, that's your job? You go around and you fill in all of the tree data for the town.
That's a good question. It's certainly common around the country. You know, there's a lot of different consultant companies like that have each have their own individual inventory software. So like the city of Providence, they do a volunteer data collection, but they use a product from Davy Tree. It's called Tree Keeper. So that's one common one. Then you know Bartlett Tree has their own other one. And there's you know.
what were you saying, East Providence used money to pay for?
No, they used our program. They used money to pay for an assessment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah, that's another route. It's going to be a lot more costly. Actually, Davy even has a new system where they actually can just drive the route, and they collect I think they use like LiDAR data or something to collect
3D data.
Yeah, they get 3D images of all of the trees, which is great. But
It just compiles the.
yeah, and then it actually can, based on like UV and everything, can identify trees that have stress. And
Wow,
so
that's cool.
there's a lot, you know, you can go
That's
down
crazy.
and
Yeah.
but we just promoted this as like a real simple way to get people out and get that at least somewhat of a baseline data, so you have something to start with, and you can always refine and go further as you go.
How many employees does the urban forestry program have?
You're looking at me.
Yeah. And we have a summer intern,
Yeah.
but yeah, so this is the biggest that our program has ever been. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. It's
you only
exciting.
need 2 when you have
You're
rock
mighty, yeah, that's right. You're the
Hey,
mighty
great,
tree
yeah.
people. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then we work closely with the Rhode Island Tree Council too. So
Big
I know they've done some training with the town here and everything too. So
Awesome.
Well, extremely informative.
Really.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much.
What do you think of?
I have a couple other papers too. I just printed out. This just goes over kind of like a five main ways we help. We talked a lot about the first one, the inventory. It also goes over making a master plan or getting funding. So I also only printed 5 of these. And then I did print out we have a guide on our website of the Tree City USA applications. I did 2 of those, so I can leave these as well here too if somebody wants to just walk through the steps of that application.
yeah, but yeah, and if you are starting it and have any questions, definitely reach out to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we won't take any more of your time tonight, but thank you for coming in.
course, yeah.
So
Thank
often
you
we
so much.
find ourselves like having these debates and not knowing the answers to questions, so we just sort of bob ideas around, but having an expert in the room is
Yeah.
always better. So,
Yeah,
appreciate
no,
it.
we're really glad we could come out and meet you all, and yeah, I hope it all goes well. Definitely keep us updated and ask
Yeah.
any questions. We'll be around to help.
Either as an official member of the Concom or not, I'd be interested in maybe going out with you sometime and learning this software. And
Totally.
just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the follow-up email. We can set up
Yep.
a time. But yeah,
Awesome.
no, absolutely.
Cool. And maybe we can coordinate if there's other people
Yeah.
who are also interested.
We could do it during our normal meetings then, a little field trip.
Sure. Yeah. First field trip to Concord's ever had.
Well, you could do a field trip before
That's
your
true.
meetings. You could do like, if you guys could get together at 4.
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
do it 4 and then have a meeting at 6 or something like that.
So it's
Get
in your
pizza.
normal working hours.
Everyone has to sign their permission slips and bring it in.
With bagged lunch. Everything.
Cool. Well, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you so
Thank
much.
you very
It
much.
was great to meet you all.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah. We won't trip on the wire.
Carol's
Thank you.
the areas past it, which is interesting. I need to dig into what that means.
I can give this some good look.
Well, I
Alright,
can
so-
tell you, I'd be.
Just for the sake of the meeting
Oh, sorry.
going forward,
We can talk about it.
do we want to continue that discussion, or are we good on? I mean, is there somewhere that we want to go as a commission, concretely in this, or do we want to?
I will fill some of this out. I have to say, I'm not going to be here for July and August because I'm leaving to my house in Trinidad from the 20th of June until the end of August. So, but I will take this, and I have a lot of time on my hands in my little house up on the hill. And I will be happy to look this over
Yeah.
and get that done so that when we come back together, and by the way, I'm also our TRC person, which will go next Wednesday. But you'll have to wait for my report because I will not be there at the next meeting. But I'll be happy to update you. I can either send it to one of you guys email wise if there's something of utmost importance, or I will give you the update when I come to the meeting at the beginning of September.
I would say just if there's things in the TRC meeting that you think are
If
relevant.
it's really
to the
exciting,
Concom,
I'll make sure you know.
just shoot me an email. A lot of the time,
I
it's,
know.
it's hit or miss whether
It's
we're
actually
involved.
interesting. I like going to it.
I think probably the best step is to, if Beth is going to email me some links, and maybe we could set up a time. I can shoot an email out and just see if it's 4 o'clock before our next meeting, so be it, or if it's just a day. If anyone is interested in doing a walkthrough, I'm sure we can organize it for some place that's like easy to get to and easy to walk.
Or you can do High Street right out here.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have the park.
Yeah.
Not that we would actually get into the park, but you could always wander into the park and look at other examples of trees for.
So maybe we just leave it at that, and I'll reach out to you before our next meeting and let you know what.
And I think the important part is breaking it up into smaller, manageable chunks.
Yeah, definitely.
Get a success story and build on
I mean, if the town of South Kingstown wants to come up with the money and hire me, I'll just be that guy for the whole year.
That might be a
But-
conflict.
No, no conflict.
I'm just
No.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I think it's great.
I'm not
anyway.
authorizing the funds.
I'm just kidding with you.
it. If they made the money available and I could assign you guys users at $500 a piece, you could build a form and you could
Yeah.
go out and do an inventory yourself.
Yeah.
But
I also will be missing the next meeting, unfortunately.
Okay.
I would, if the timing works out, I'd love to get outside with you, but totally understand if that happens.
it is a couple days before the 4th of July.
Yeah, it's that,
Our
it's that
meeting.
same week. Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, in the
We
past,
actually skipped it last year,
Yeah,
so I
there's-
didn't miss the
there's been
meeting when
summer
I was in
meetings.
Trinidad last year. I know
we
that.
miss, so especially with 2 members
Yeah,
missing,
got kids.
it's possible that we won't have a July meeting, but obviously we'll be in touch about that.
I think the question I'm holding just around next steps is, they mentioned the December's the application deadline for
Yeah.
Tree City. Are we,
We
and they
can do
kind
it.
of indicated that's like the baseline thing.
Yeah.
Are we gonna go for that? Do we want to talk about planning an Arbor Day celebration? Or are we looking at 2026?
I think that in the past when we've discussed it, we were on board with seeking that accreditation. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, the sticking point was what will that Arbor Day celebration look like?
Right.
She said it couldn't be anything though.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
You're against it to just small things, you
Yeah.
know.
I think we should keep that deadline in mind and
Yeah.
not have it be December when we're scrambling to
Right.
talk about it.
What about
That
an
said,
action
I'm happy
item
to
for
kick
the
the can
September meeting that
to the
everyone
Sep-
comes with an idea what they kind of see the possible idea? I liked what you said about trying to like get some volunteers too. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I think, there's only, whatever it is, 6 meetings between now and then,
Yeah.
5 meetings. So we need to continue to think about it and not just let it slip away from us again.
Well, and I think, didn't they say that, or maybe you brought it up, Kate, that some of the grant funding is dependent upon being a Tree City designated, so
Right.
kind of
You know, one,
behooves us to do it.
Yeah, it gives you an edge.
one thing you could do is you could we could ask DPS saying, look, several locations where there is a tree replacement that has been that is ripe for a tree replacement or has been scheduled for a tree replacement, and then use that as your Arbor Day.
Yeah,
Do a tree planting, maybe get some of the kids from a nearby school to come out, or a Boy Scout troop or something, teach them a few things, and do a little shindig just to say you did it and you can apply.
Yeah.
And get in.
And Lou mentioned it doesn't, I mean, maybe this is what you're saying, that it doesn't have to be on Arbor Day, our Arbor Day.
It can be any time.
Yeah, so it can be
Yeah.
any day, it can be a big
Coordinate.
project, small project, can be.
we we need a proclamation.
Proclamation day. Yeah.
Just need
Read
that
something
milk
in
crate,
public.
Someone standing there.
Yes,
Read the thing.
But this town,
like the mayor of Munchkin City.
There we go.
but with my experience though, this town will get behind it, you just
Yeah.
need to put the balls in motion.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Okay. Do we want to attack that right now or the next meeting that we have?
I want to read through this. There's some good ideas in here that I would like to look at.
We'll put it on the agenda for next meeting. I think we'll move on to our next agenda item for the evening, which is just a quick update on the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District work on Old Tower Hill Road. Was there anything that you had to add to that also?
No,
Okay.
that was, I think Jay passed that on for the May meeting, and I didn't do anything this week.
Nope.
For this meeting.
No sweat.
Okay, great, thanks.
We don't have any new business.
Can I go back to that real quick?
Yeah.
In speaking with Gina, they are the entity that is doing the work out there, correct?
Yes, yeah, right. I mean, she said something about they have a charter with a group that's doing it, and apparently they, from
So
what
they subbed out to another, they have subbed out the work to another group?
I think so. That's I'd have to look.
That's what the confusion is, because I was talking about it tonight, like at 5:00. And we're like, oh no, they got some landscape, and I was like, really? Because Melissa's been having conversations with Gina Fuller, and she said, well, I don't think it's Gina Fuller. I'm like, well, it's a little important to know. Like, we're talking about.
So RIDOT hired Southern
SRICD.
Yeah, and then they hired
Someone else.
Oh, as I recall, she talked about having a charter or something with, somebody that is the entity that's, I guess, hiring people to do the weeding and whatever that, she said they were doing during, the past couple of months. I think she said April, and driving up Main Street, it did seem like the retention basins that had a lot of weeds in it had been, had been taken out. And I can contact her again for the next meeting and ask, about planting. She seemed to indicate, I think, in one of the reports I gave, that they had money, for replacement plants. So I'll do that for, the next meeting.
It's getting too late to do that.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
It's probably gonna be it'd have to be a fall thing.
Okay. To be continued.
What's interesting though is if this conversation continues and we still have no progress, what strings do we pull to say, plant the beds?
yeah, that's pretty
Like
much
DOT, we gotta
empty.
bang our heads against DOT, because I'm pretty sure DOT. I don't know.
I've emailed them at least 8 times, and it's always like, well, we're looking into this and we're doing that, and then again they go back to this next person that's supposed to be doing. There seems to be a disconnect of who exactly is responsible for getting it done, because it's not happening.
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me.
So perhaps the conversation, perhaps it's a letter to DOT to get them to respond. I mean, that's something that you guys
emails
could
we
do.
could
You
print
write
out.
a letter to DOT outlining the fact that you've been in contact and correspondence with Southern Rhode Island District.
Yeah.
And we're looking for confirmation that the islands, that they will get replanted, or that there will be maintenance done make them respond.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Yep.
not
She said in it. once again, I'm sure I passed it on, that she had lists of plants from DOT to choose from. And, they were mostly native plants, but, once again, that when they were going to be, she didn't mention obviously in the report for May that, planting had taken place. Can certainly drive by and see.
Yeah, but obviously the whole point of outsourcing it from DOT to SRICD is that they're a smaller group that should be able to tackle it and not have it take 5 years to actually accomplish. So
Sorry, we're talking about those, like, there's the black fencing.
Yeah, they look
Yeah,
like bike
so-
racks.
Rain gardens, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, there is a safety angle here too. Some of those are broken, the actual fencing, and to me, that's just from a people walking down the street.
Mm.
And who's responsible for actually maintaining the fencing? I know that's not within our realm
It's
of.
DOT,
Probably
it's
DOT.
it's Rhode Island
So I
DOT.
wonder if we do write a letter to DOT, it could be a combination of the two. Like, it's not
I
just about the
sent
planting.
them many
but it's
email
also-
letters.
Squeaky wheel,
yeah,
the squeaky wheel, and on these days with the way things are, I encourage written the letters, put it in writing, because you force them to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to send the letter with the heading of our organization, because I have been doing all of that as a concerned South Kingstown,
I have
citizen.
I have a letterhead for you guys.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
just give me the contact.
because they definitely were good with the responses. I didn't have problems getting that, but it was a lot of, oh yeah, then there's this person I need to talk to and I'll get back to you. I'm like, oh, did you ever hear from this person? Well, I'm working on it, and then there'd be I got there was a lot. And whoever's going to write the letter, let me forward you that so you can have a kind of look to see where they're at. That would be good.
do we feel like we're at the stage where we want to send that letter to DOT? Do we want to give SRI, am I saying it, SRICD? Is that the right acronym?
Well, yeah, Southern
Do we-
Rhode Island Conservation District.
Do we want to give them like one more shot at figuring this out, or do we? It does
Well-
feel like this has come up on many agendas, and
Yeah, and I also don't feel like Gina has been completely responsive to Melissa. Is that a fair assessment, Melissa? I mean, I feel like I had the sense like you chased her for a little bit to get answers and some stuff. Is that?
Well, I mean, I send her an email and she doesn't answer, and then when I, gets closer to the meeting, I, send another email and, ask her very politely again if she might be able to provide information so I can present it at the meeting. And she's, I think she's always done that. When I contacted her in April for the May meeting, she was, seemingly kind of harried, probably like a lot of government organizations with budget issues. So,
Yeah.
I think they already got the money though from DOT, and we're
I mean,
talking
so there
well,
must be a
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I mean other budget issues.
Oh yeah,
There
I was
must
going to
be-
say like the money
this-
for this project is already in play.
But there must be a contract. There must be
I think there
something
is.
that outlines something. So just generally inquiring that and saying like, look, we've inquired with SRICD. We don't want to be obtuse with them about bothering them. We just want to get an understanding of what is the maintenance protocol. What is DOT expecting to be done? Where we,
it's all just a money laundering scheme.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know that.
gone. It's somewhere, but it's not in the plans.
More along the lines of
They
get it done,
smoked
make
it.
it go
They
away, so
smoked
it's
the
not
plans.
responsibility. We can move on to other stuff.
It's like, I don't know where to go with that.
All right. Anybody want to write a letter to DEM?
I
don't think it-
if you guys want to put the bones together, I'll polish it and put it on letterhead and circulate it. But I just need the bones of it.
I don't think it needs to be very long at all. And we don't even have to go into all of the contact we've had or not had with SRICD. It can just be like, hey, what's the story? Almost approach it as someone who doesn't know what the deal is at all. Just asking DOT to shed light on what the contracted arrangement is.
Mhm.
I'll write a couple lines and email that. To you.
I'll try to spruce it up too. I mean,
Okay.
just-
And it might surprise some people, but I mean, I think the what they did to modify the roadway markings and whatnot in that stretch, which is ever so busy, seems to be working well. I mean, when I look at that very busy area of the town. Improvements were definitely made. You know, certainly, you know, these features that were put into the, which snake around the pedestrian ways as well. And that seems to work. But again, what it comes down to is, are the plants existing, one, and two, are they really doing what was set out when those drainage systems were put into place? And it doesn't hurt to say that some of this is working well. You know, why not this too, if it was designed properly? So
Yeah, I mean, all that physical infrastructure was put in, but arguably keeping
Okay, I'm gonna
living
forward
things
you guys
alive
the,
is the hardest part of that equation.
Yeah.
My thing says it's landscaping on Tower Hill Road, Wakefield, and there's about 8 different back and forth. So, Matt, did you say you were gonna write the letter and then you're gonna send the letterhead? Why don't I just pitch this to the two of you and you can look at it?
Sure.
Okay. These are all the emails, and they were just written by this little
Well, tell you
citizen
what,
of South Kingstown.
Send it to Matt.
Okay, I think I just said it. You could just get rid of it.
That way we're both not working separately.
Just to, you could just
put
read
something
through the
together each
dialogue and just see what, you know, if
Sure.
you feel like it,
Sure.
you know.
You can also review past minutes, obviously, from the reports I gave.
Right. Yeah, I can look through my email and suss that out. Okay, cool. I'll get back to you all
It
the next
started
time.
on
I see
April 9th.
whether that's July or not. Okay. A report from the duty member on the prior month's TRC meeting. That was me. There wasn't. There were two. I don't know what the term is. Two cases. Two projects for review. The first was just an individual who came in representing themselves. They were looking to subdivide a lot, do a minor subdivision on their lot to make it two. I don't think there was anything that was particularly related to Concom business in that one. I think that some of their questions or some of their requests were tabled. I think they're going to be coming back for the next TRC meeting, but not for anything that concerned us specifically. The other was the major land development that's happening with South Kingstown High School. So obviously there's a ton of concerns that could overlap with things for us, with especially with runoff. And probably the most interesting thing that was discussed, I thought, at that meeting from a Concom perspective, was that there's going to be an overlap between, so they're planning to build the new structure and utilize the old one, and once the new one is done, then they'll seamlessly transfer students over and then start deconstruction of the old one. So there's going to be a period of time, which sounded like it was at least a couple years, where there's going to be maximum impervious coverage on that site, where you're going to have basically two buildings existing, where right now there's a building and a field. And eventually, so building, field becomes building, and then the old one becomes field, but 2 years of serious runoff concerns. So that's just something obviously that town officials are concerned with as well. And that's just an ongoing discussion that's going to be had of how to properly direct stormwater runoff and mitigate the problems that could come with all that.
I didn't realize they were that far along.
In the planning process,
Yeah.
you mean? Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know.
It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, it's been a couple years, and I don't know when the date is for breaking ground.
But just recently, they called for a meeting that was finalizing plans, which made me wonder what is going on, because we had voted on a stipulation of supposedly plans that were being done, and all of a sudden the wording changed. Did you guys see that? It was like, could be a couple of months ago, where they were actually not agreeing upon the finalized blueprint plan. And I thought, well, what the heck was the money for? Like, that you already got voted into play.
Yeah, I mean, the stated reason for that being on the TRC's agenda was that they were asking for relief from a height variance. So
The town is not exempt from our own regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So a municipality is not exempt from their own regulations unless your ordinance and regulations say so. And ours doesn't. So that means that we are subject to the same application process
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
anybody else is.
But just to say that's those types of things are still being discussed. You know, that's not.
But I went to all those the meetings they had at the high school. There were like 4 of them where they had an open forum where we came in and looked at an actual layout of what they were planning to do.
I
It
think
surprised me when I saw this recently, like they were acting like that never happened in a way. And I thought it was weird. I'm just saying.
Some of those meetings I
Like-
think occurred before it had even been voted on as to whether
That was to
it
get
should
people
happen.
to say yes to the voting. It was
Right.
very, the structure, everything was like, this is what we're gonna do, this is what you're voting on, will you approve the money to do this project?
Yeah.
That's how they put it out there. Then they got the money approved. And then after that, I'm reading things in I don't know if it was in the Independent or what, but I'm like, where is this coming from when all of this other stuff already happened? So I was just sitting back and watching and waiting and wondering what is happening.
Well, I mean, you have to
Still
look.
in.
You have to look at it like the town went to the general public to say, "What do you want to do?" General public said, "Yeah, we want to do X." They started doing X, and then realized through all the trials and tribulations that the end product is going to look more like Y because of engineering details and other things. That come
Oh, they had to change it because it didn't meet
you
the
have to
spec
start.
that.
You have to start somewhere, and to be practical, the difficulty with a project like this is that one, it starts with the school committee, then it goes to
They don't-
public for. Then it goes to the public for input. Everybody's got an opinion. Then it goes to council. Then what do you want to do? Okay, great. Go ahead and forward with it. And there's people who still think like you, who still think, well, wait a minute, this isn't right. This isn't. This is still. It's a work in progress. It's constantly changing. But people are going, well, that's not the plan I looked at. And then it has to go to planning board. And then planning board's sitting there, and this planning board's ready to pick it apart. And we as staff is saying, look, this has already been reviewed in 60 different meetings between
That's what
4
I
different
thought.
bodies in the town.
That's right.
And everybody has their own
Yeah.
angle on it. So trying to get everybody to go like this, like, all right, let's look at that, keep our eye on the prize, knowing that things are going to change.
Is this what they're talking about next door
Yeah.
tonight?
Yeah, well, I think they're done.
I just mean, in general, that's what the meeting was about. Yeah, I shake my head. I tell you, I watch my taxes keep going up, and I'm wondering what the hell's going on.
But the reason, the other reason
I
why
really
was
do.
we're under a time crunch to
Yeah.
get an
Yeah.
application in for grant funds for
Yeah.
funding. So that means you have to have all that stuff ironed out before you even get off the ground.
Bingo.
Right?
That's it.
And even now, when they went to planning and we were reviewing it at TRC, they showed a new drainage line
Yes, it keeps
that
changing.
comes out of the parking lot that goes under the existing building. Well, if the drainage is going first and that building's not coming down, how are you putting the drainage line in?
And I don't think people realize what a hill is right there. Like that, you feel like you're in a flat town, but that corner right there is, I know where I park and where I come in on second floor, and I haven't gone anywhere. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, it's like my house in Trinidad. It's built into a hillside. We both have, our path goes down, our path goes up. It's like a 10-foot change. And it's like 2 separate levels. And it's a very confusing layout in there.
Yeah.
And then they have a 3rd floor.
It
So it's
definitely
interesting.
has the potential for
Yeah.
nightmarish.
There's a serious runoff situation when you start opening up the ground there. Like Hazard is at the 2nd level, but the front of the school is down here.
Right.
And the building is like right there. It's a very strange change quickly.
So did
Yeah.
Jamie Rabbit? Did he request that engineer or architect come back to the next month's TRC meeting? I don't recall.
No, it was brought up.
It's gonna be
It was
exciting.
brought up and it was acknowledged that that issue and several other issues they know they have to address it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
it's just, again, you're kind of just working on the fly, saying like, all right, we gotta change this, we gotta change that.
Sure.
It's not uncommon in every application, and, I mean,
So we'll see this. Maybe not. This dovetails nicely into the next heading on the agenda: designation for the duty member for this month's TRC meeting, which is Wednesday, June 11th, and Carol's on.
I'll go at 9, yeah.
So this probably won't come up, but at some future TRC meeting, we'll be hearing more about this.
no.
Oh, you don't think they're
No.
gonna come into this
It's
TRC?
Done, it's done with TRC.
Yep, they got master and preliminary plan approval from the planning board. So their
Alright.
next step is submit a final application, which is just administrative in our office.
Okay.
And then,
So they ironed out the problems.
Well, they were told, they highlighted what the problems were, and
they
were
know
told to hire
about them. And the town knows that this is a work in progress, and we have to kind of move on our feet as we go.
Have they figured out an actual groundbreaking time so that they can stick to their, I think they want to get in there for the school year 27-28.
I'm not gonna speak for them,
Oh, okay.
but they're in a serious time crunch.
Yeah.
All right. So just to reiterate, Carol will be attending the next.
Can I have one more thing I want to say that I also heard through the grapevine, which is really strange, is that there is actually talk going on right now of combining the two school districts of Narragansett and South Kingstown because of the lack of student pilot. Yeah, there's a small number of students right now. And now that's a big move, given the fact that we're talking about making a new high school here. If they're going to combine, does that mean everybody goes to Narragansett High School and this stops completely? I would just wonder.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a crazy big thing.
Yeah, I'll say one last thing, which is that there's so much overlap between conservation issues and affordable housing issues
Yeah.
and like school committee issues. And one thing that's happening on the state level is there was a committee that was formed to co-discuss affordable housing and conservation stuff. I just say that because one of the reasons house prices are high in South Kingstown, one of the reasons that maybe student attendance is lower is because there's less young people having kids living in the town, yada yada. But on a state level, there is a committee that was created a couple decades ago that just has never fully coalesced and been operating the way it was supposed to discuss affordable housing and conservation stuff together. And I know that the Rhode Island Land Trust Council is working on that. On resurrecting that.
Well, we spent quite a bit of time looking at blueprints of the 4 possible places that
Right.
we would do that.
Sure,
So
yeah, and that was like
interesting.
an interesting overlap.
Very
of those two
interesting. I
issues.
thought to be seeing that in the Conservation Commission. I liked that.
So hopefully on a state level,
Yeah.
those two things are gonna be like our purview, and that type of talk is gonna be overlapping a little more. Okay, so Carol will be at the meeting on Wednesday, June 11th, the TRC meeting. If there's anything relevant to the Concom, you'll email me, and I can give an update at the next Concom meeting.
Thank you.
I will put together a RIDOT email with some input from Carol and
I'll send you
Melissa,
an email, yeah.
just info, and then Jay and I will work on getting that to Rhode Island DOT, get some answers about those planters on Tower Hill Road, and I'll also get an email from Beth, who was here tonight, and we can maybe sort
What
out
I just
maybe a
forwarded
field
you,
trip or
it was
not.
14 different back and forths, I noticed, and it started last September. That's how long we've been talking to them.
Don't send me all of them.
They all just came in a row. It's just
Yeah.
little back and forth. It's an easy read through.
Cliff notes.
Yeah, it's an easy
Yeah.
read through. It's an
Okay.
easy read through.
Our next meeting is Tuesday, July 1st. If it seems like we have a lack of attendance, then maybe that'll be August instead. But on the books for now, Tuesday, July 1st. And with that, I will adjourn tonight. Oh, I didn't want to open that up. I will adjourn the meeting at 7:43. Thank you all for coming.
Okay.
Sorry to keep everyone so long.